So this is my second video on incarnation, and I'm going to think about what incarnation might look like, and I'm going to look at it in three areas. First of all, how did Jesus incarnate the gospel? How does the church incarnate the gospel? And what does that look like missionally? And so when we think about Jesus and the gospel, what does Jesus incarnation look like? And beyond the image of Christmas and the little baby, Jesus looking, how does he incarnate the good news? What does he do? And I think really, one of the things he says is, if you've seen me, you've seen the Father. And so if we look at Jesus, we see where his priorities were, where he spent his time, and more importantly, who he spent his time with. Jesus seems to spend his time not with the people that everyone else thought he should be spending his time with, the religious, the influential, the powerful, and I think that was part of the problem. That was why he was maybe so despised, was that he didn't spend his time with the people that everyone else spent their time with. He spent his time with what the Greek word is oklos, the crowd. And actually crowd is a deceptive word when we translate it, because what it literally means is the rabble, the unwashed, the unloved. Jesus seems to go, and I'm going to talk in another thing on Bethany. Seems to spend a lot of time with Bethany, but Bethany was an interesting place, which I will kind of go into deeper in a different video. But Jesus spends his time with marginal communities. He's accused of hanging out with gluttons and drunkards, the people that everyone else despised, tax collectors. He spends the time with the people that everyone else avoids, the oklos, the crowd, the rabble, and his priority seems to be amongst the sick, the unhealthy, the poor, the weak, the marginalised. And so really that leads on to what is the church? Where should the church be? And for me, the church should be also amongst those people, the marginalised, the poorest, the people in distress, those people struggling and finding life difficult. In many ways, the church is. That's why there's so many food banks or the Christians Against Poverty that are set up by Christians, and those are great things. And I think that's really, really useful to have those things. But unfortunately, what I often find is many of those things, while they start off Christian, are soon run by people who are not Christian. So many of the volunteers at our local food bank in Plymouth are not Christians. They're just ordinary people who get a passion, excited about the fact that they could do this. And you kind of wonder how we've lost that, how we've missed those things, what's happening. And so that's the thing, that the church should be amongst the poorest. And then I think about what that looks like missionally. What does it mean to incarnate the gospel in a missional way? So if we think about what Jesus' priorities were, to be amongst the poor, to incarnate the gospel amongst the people that everyone else excluded and ignored, well then we as mission people should be amongst the poor. And I think those three critical areas where I think the church needs to be incarnating the gospel, and that is in living, working and worshipping. And I think those three, if you can do all three, I'm lucky, I'm a pastor in a inner city deprived area. It doesn't look like it, and I look on days like this and I've got the view behind me, but this is one of the beauties of working in the inner city area, is that in Devon, is that you still get the beautiful bits, even if just over there is some pretty rancid stuff. But not rancid, horrible word, not really, it's just very different. And so living, worship is easy for me. That's what I do, all three of them. I live in my community, I worship in the community, and I work in the community. But maybe you think, I can't live there, I can't move my family there. Well, could you work there? Could you worship there? Could you do something different from what all the other Christians I know? I sometimes wonder when Christians are sat in pews thinking, well, God, why don't you use me? God, why don't you use me? And I kind of think, well, get yourself out of that church and go to a church where you can be used. Get yourself out of that job where you're frustrated, and do a job amongst people that you can be used by. So that's one of the things. So living, worshipping and working amongst the poor, getting the priorities of Jesus by seeing what he does and what he makes a priority of, and following that in our lives. And that is the end of this chapter. I'm not sure what the next one is, but I will endeavour to think about something and talk about it next time I see you. Thank you. Bye.